local history, local culture, local events, your community. This is the Joe Kelly Show.
And welcome to the show, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Rocco LaDuca joins us. Rocco is the co-host of Talk of the Town on WUTQ 100.7, correct?
FM, yeah.
Yeah, FM. And it airs every Monday through Friday, starting at 6 a.m. and going to 10 a.m. 6
Yeah.
a.m., boy, you must have to get up awful early.
4 hours, yeah. I get up about 4 a.m. if I'm lucky.
Yeah. The show is really a general interest show, but I've been noticing lately that you've been concentrating a lot on your guests who are running for Board of Education seats, yes?
Yeah, we like to have a lot of diversity in the show because 4 hours is a long time, and we do have a lot of listeners that actually do, surprisingly, stick through the whole 4 hours. So we want to allow it to cover a variety of issues, a lot of elections going on, but one issue that's of really put a lot of interest now is the school board elections, because you have a lot of parents that were upset during the pandemic, a lot of learning issues that arose or became apparent during the pandemic with their kids at home, and some programming and curriculum questions and budget issues. So that got a lot of parents fired up.
And the time that we're in now, it's, I don't know, kind of a comeback time for people, I guess. Is that a good way of putting it, Rocco? People are coming back, getting more normal. Things were, for a long time, just so off the wall.
Well, it depends what your definition of normal is.
Yeah.
I don't know if people were ever normal.
Yeah.
But I think people are getting more comfortable coming back into the openness of life. They're anxious, they're frustrated, a lot of angst over the past 2 years. So a lot of people are fired up. And they're angry about certain things, but a lot of people are very excited for just to be able to get back to some normal life that we used to have. But it's funny, when I've been doing this show for 5 years now, and I do notice that the mindset and thinking prior to the pandemic and then after the pandemic is a little different now. And that's just the nature of news coverage and conversation.
Yeah. When you say it's a little different, in what way?
I think there's, right or wrong, I come from a journalism background, so I'm used to being objective, in the middle of the road, listening to all sides of the story. And I think generally speaking, people do want to do that, but for a variety of reasons, they tended to get more into the extremes and the ends and not so much in the middle ground. The pandemic and the election in 2020 and President Trump and President Biden, a lot of issues got people going off into the extremes, again, right or wrong, wherever you want to be, with the mandates and the vaccine and the election, that people just really got fired up and dug in deep in their positions. And there wasn't really much room, I think, to argue or debate it in the way that a journalist like me would like to. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that was very hard, because you want to try to hear from both sides. But if the other side isn't willing to listen to, even if you're playing devil's advocate and just raising up the what if issue, which is important in journalism, they didn't want to hear it.
Yeah, what if can get you in trouble.
Yeah,
I speak
exactly.
from experience.
Exactly.
You started, you went to Syracuse, correct? Newhouse?
Yep, the Newhouse School for my master's in journalism in 2004. I graduated there and went to the Observer-Dispatch, the Utica paper, for 10 years, covering crime and murders and trials.
You had a tough beat. I always thought that I had to couple before I started a column for the OD. I was a reporter. And I always dreaded going to court, because it seemed to me that was the one place you couldn't screw up. Boy, you screw up something there and you got a lot of trouble,
right? Not
only for you, but for the people involved. And one word really could, you get one word wrong, it could screw up everything.
That was a learning. I mean, I love that beat. I don't know why. I never thought I'd be a crime reporter. I got thrown into it. My first day in 2004 in August, going to be 18 years now I was there ago. And 2 kids got killed in Utica, Cornhill. I never dealt with murder or shootings. I was thrust into the middle of a city I was new to, with people surrounding me, angry, upset. Mm-hmm. And you see the protests now and racial equality and all those arguments now. I was thrust into something on a smaller scale like that for the first time, because people thought that black youths in a community like this were either kill or be killed. And for a 25-year-old guy to come from a small town and thrust into something like that. It got real very fast. So then going to court and covering the police beat, I barely knew what a district attorney was. And to understand the law and words, I had two close calls. Two, not close calls, I made the mistake. I mentioned somebody went to jail when they did not go to jail. And I mentioned that during a trial, I quoted someone as talking, and it was the deceased victim. I mistaken the name. So those were two mistakes
Two big mistakes.
Two big mistakes that made me feel embarrassed, and in those moments you're like, oh my God, how did I not lose my job? But you just move on to the next day, and you learn from your mistakes.
How did you handle that in the paper?
Just a correction.
Yeah.
And I mean that's all you can really do.
Was it a well-placed correction, or was it buried?
It was, I forgot where they would put it. I wouldn't say it was buried, but it was put in the page where you would normally look for corrections.
Page 2 maybe?
Yeah. Right on the inside.
Yeah, how did you go home and sleep that night?
Well, you do I take pride now, almost 20 years later, of not making mistakes, of not saying things that I don't know to be true, which is very hard in today's world, especially on the radio when you're having a debate or discussion. People say things and you don't always know. In that moment, you can't always fact check it. So I don't always want, when you're in the middle of a heated discussion, you got to watch your words when you're live because people listen to you and people believe what you say. In the newspaper, it was very easy to spend, whether a few minutes or an hour, how much longer you had to fact check your things. So now I view things very differently, but at the time, I did question, how did I make that mistake? I started to second guess everything I did as a reporter because you thought like, that was such a stupid mistake. I quoted a dead person in a trial. How did I do that? And then it makes you think that everything you do is you got to have somebody on your back, somebody looking over you, fact checking. But then that's just the jitters, a few days that goes away. That's part of being a journalist.
Are you on a delay on the radio?
Usually. But I think maybe in 5 years I've said one word I shouldn't have said.
Yeah. But just in case, I was thinking not so much of you as a guest.
Oh, right.
Would call in and use a profanity or something.
Yeah, occasionally we do have callers and guests that may drop a swear word or something like that, and usually we catch it, and sometimes it slips through. Yeah, but it seems like if you watch any news network, radio is different than TV. You watch CNN or Fox, and you hear all sorts of swear words tossed around.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly, when I did radio a long time ago on WIVX talk show, not as good as your talk show, by the way, it was just a different ballgame. I mean, things that you say now routinely would never be said back then. So a different ballgame.
Things got a lot looser, and I'm surprised that we don't have more people calling in or saying what's on their mind and using certain things you shouldn't. But people still do, because when we like to have callers that are the average listener citizen, they're themselves. I mean, occasionally they might misspeak or go a little too far, but they're a reflection of people in the community.
Maybe when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about changes in journalism and changes in radio. Rocco LaDuca is our guest. We're talking radio and news. Short break, right back. And welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. Rocco LaDuca is our guest. He is co-host of Talk of the Town on WUTQ 100.7 FM. You have an unusual operation down there in that there's 3 people asking questions Jason Aiello and Mark Walber.
Walber, yeah. A well-known attorney.
Yeah, yeah. And Jason's been in radio for many years.
Yeah.
How does that work with I don't know that I'd be comfortable doing it with 3 people. I have a tough time on my own, let alone feeding off of 2 others.
Yeah. We've all been doing that for 5 years now, which blows my mind, that because it's exhausting. I mean, 4 hours every day, got to keep up on the news, get up early, and that, I mean, to me, that's just a great fun job, to be able to spend 4 hours interviewing guests, talking about issues, debating things, getting a voice that a lot of people wish they could have in this world, that they could be listened to. So I take it very seriously, and I'm humbled by it that people listen to all of us. So I want to make sure, all of us want to make sure we do the best we can. So we choose our guests very wisely, we choose our issues very wisely to talk about, we try to get the listeners engaged. But the biggest challenge is that you have three big shots like us, I'll just use that word.
And opinionated
right.
people.
We all have our opinions, we all have our voices, and none of us like to take a backseat to anybody in good spirits, because we all feel we have something good to contribute to the conversation. The only limit is you got maybe 15, 20 minutes, a half hour, or whatever the time limit is. So all of us would have a different conversation if we were left alone, which would be good enough. But then you jam 3 people and they all have essentially their own conversations or a joint conversation, and you don't know what everybody's question is going to be. You have to learn to pace yourself. You have to learn to be able to ask questions in a way that you can get to the answer you want in that moment, because you might not have another shot because somebody else, one of the other hosts, might have a question. And to me, again, that's has its own complications, but I think we all bring something unique and different to the table that our listeners like my views sometimes, they like Jay's, they like Mark's. So I think it all works in a way that is unique. It's interesting, it's fun, it's frustrating at times. Mark and I like to go back and punch at each other, and some listeners think we're fighting, but then it's just making it's electricity, right?
Yeah. Do you ever continue the conversation after the show? Does it get spirited enough that once you're done, you're done?
You mean with the hosts amongst us? No, I think it's more in the time constraint that you got a minute to make a point, and sometimes you got to grab it by the horns and just get it out there. When you're off the air, you just have your normal conversation. So I never have any I get passionate about conversations, we all do on the air as part of the show, but privately, well, I'm always passionate about everything I talk about, but privately it's more, you don't have time limits, so you can be more calm.
The guests that you have, and on your website you show a number of past guests, very eclectic.
Yeah, well, that's this community here. There's a lot of not-for-profits, a lot of organizations and charities that do great things. There's a lot of elected officials that love to come on the air, that have issues they want to highlight. There's, every time someone's for an election, we want to try to get all points of view on there. But I've always liked, as a reporter, I've always liked those lesser-known people that we all know the elected officials, and they've got an important voice to say. But it's some of those folks in the community that I've known for years that might never have been on the radio or never were asked to be on the radio, or Mark might know, or Jay might know, because they grew up in this community. And I'm new here, I'm from the Buffalo area. So when I find somebody that's fascinating to me and I've known for a long time, I like to share that person and that perspective with the public. And so that's what I think radio is what we do on the show is very unique, that we can allow a lot of people to listen to someone they might not otherwise have heard from.
Yeah, but you also get some nationally or at least statewide known people on there. I was seeing the other day you had David Gergen.
Yeah.
He's pushing a book.
Presidential advisor and talking a little bit
about...
How was
he?
Well, what's funny with the national is we get spoiled when we talk to people that come in the studio. We'll get maybe a half an hour with them. Some of these national high-profile guests will get like 5, 8, 10 minutes with. So you got to be very fast with your questions. But the 2 things that David Gergen said that I thought were very interesting. He was a presidential advisor to Nixon, Ford, Reagan, and Bill Clinton. And he said, when you're an advisor, I asked him, do they listen to you? He goes, you have about a few 7 seconds to get their attention, or they're on to something else. They're distracted by something else. So you have to learn very quickly. And I used to work with Senator Griffo, so I understood
Communications
that time.
director,
Yes, quickly, how valuable their time was. You had to make your points. But also, he has a new book about leadership and what makes a great leader. And I asked him, are we at a loss for leaders now? Seems like everybody is looking for leadership somewhere. And David Gergen made a great point that I agree with, that we're all flawed. Even our leaders are flawed. And sometimes we have a tendency to want to tear down our heroes for everything they do wrong, or every flaw they have, or what we think is wrong with them. And we don't really give them a chance to lead as a flawed human. And if you don't give your flawed humans a chance to be great, it's very hard to find leaders in today's world.
You also had, I'll ask you about this when we come back, Comptroller Napoli,
Tom DiNapoli, yeah.
Tom DiNapoli on your show. I interviewed him once. I liked him. We'll see what you think about him when we come back. Rocco LaDuca is our guest. We're talking radio and journalism. Short break, right back. And Rocco LaDuca is our guest. We're talking journalism, we're talking radio. He's got a talk show Monday through Friday on WUTQ 100.7 FM.
Yeah. Talk of the Town.
Talk of the Town. And he shares those duties with Jason Aiello and Mark Wolber. And 5 years you've been doing it, correct? I've got to ask you a question off of our topic.
Off the record?
No, not off the record.
Don't listen to this.
I learned a long time ago, nothing's off the record. You say to something, well, it's off the record. Well, it's off the record, but you've told somebody, and they know it. Now, who are they going to tell? So
it's my duty not to repeat it.
Yeah. Well, there was that, I forget who said it. You might remember who said this. It might have been a gangster, I don't know. It's a secret if one of the two people are dead. And I think it
seems about right.
Yeah. Anyway, you spoke last year, did you not, at the naturalization ceremony?
No, not last year, just in March.
In March.
Yeah, for the new immigrants became new citizens. Yeah.
Did you enjoy it?
I did.
Yeah.
I spoke about, it was emotional to me. I actually choked up as I was talking about what I do as a reporter is the freedom of the press. It's our First Amendment. It's an amendment right. My job is your job is based in the Constitution. And in some countries, that could get you killed. Mm-hmm. So as I finally had to talk to other people from those countries that might experience that, it made me realize that sometimes we take our freedoms here for granted, and how great it is for these new Americans to appreciate what we have here.
Yeah. The reason I asked the question is because I'm going to be doing the next one.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so I might steal your idea and use it.
Read my script.
The comptroller, Mr. DiNapoli.
Yeah.
How'd you find him?
Well, a lot of people, he's a Democrat, and so in today's politics where an R or D next to your name can shut off certain people from listening to you, a lot of our listeners said that they thought Tom DiNapoli, as a Democrat, came across as a very reasonable, moderate mind. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's the nature of his job. Maybe that's just his personality. He's very likable, easy to talk to. I don't know what his political aspirations are, but people seem to like him.
Yeah, I asked him that question. I interviewed him in Albany a couple years ago. I found him the same way. Very likable, very kind of like middle of the road politician. I asked him what his political aspirations were. I don't think I got a good answer on it, but
you'll never get the answer.
Yeah. Is there a guest that you've been wanting to get on your show that you haven't gotten on yet?
You know, it's not so much that, I mean, as far as the national level, there's guests that I would love to interview. David Letterman, he's a big inspiration for me. I think it would be cool if Donald Trump called into our show. He likes to do random interviews like that. They're not realistic, but I did interview one guy that was a big deal for me, was Art Alexakis. He was the lead singer for my favorite band, Everclear, that I followed for 20-some years. They're doing a 30th anniversary tour. I grew up with them in the 90s. Their music really touched me as a teenager, and I listened to it in the car every day. And I have become a friend of his. To actually interview him 3 times now on our show was, to me, just like not why I do this, but the reward of doing this is that you really get to interview people who've touched your life and ask them questions that maybe some people wish they could be able to ask their heroes. So I'm pretty content with who we talked. It would be nice if we could get Tony Pacenti and Mayor Palmieri in our studio instead of on the phone sometimes, but we'll take it up with them.
It's I guess it's easier for them to just pick up the phone and not have to.
They're busy.
Yeah. Have you gotten the governor on yet? The new governor?
Kathy Hochul, not now. Maybe during the campaign we'll make it happen, but she's been on the show as lieutenant governor in the past.
Mm-hmm. What was your take on her?
Well, I met her as well as a few times working with Senator Griffo. We've gone on tours of various things, and she came here to speak for at the Vietnam Veteran Memorial that Senator Griffo organized and set up for on Route 49, and walking around with her at the Griffiths Business Park. She's very pleasant. I like talking to her. She's from the Buffalo area, Western New York, so she seemed very down to earth. And so it's just interesting now to see as she gets thrust into the spotlight and as governor now in the governor's campaign. It's very easy for people to look at her and say, well, wait a minute, who is the real Kathy Hochul? The one we all saw or the one now who has to try to win a big election?
Yeah. Did you like your time in politics as Director of Communications for Senator Griffo?
It was a life that I don't like to be behind the scenes for really anything. Most of my career has been spent my name, my voice. Yeah. It's very hard. I've learned. Not that Senator Griffo can certainly speak for himself, and he's a good friend of mine and treated me very well. And that job really opened my eyes to a lot of political issues, state issues, legislative issues that I would not have been able to do this radio show was it not for that experience. It showed me a lot in terms of the challenges that our elected officials really do have. And when you get a good one, whoever it is, not necessarily speaking about Joe, but when you get a good one, what David Gergen said was right. Sometimes it's a lot easier to tear them down than just expect that they're not always going to be able to be everything to everyone, that you got to appreciate that they're going to be some good with the bad. These are imperfect people, and I think the demands we place on them when watching from the sidelines, as I did at times, just would make me shake my head, because I think to me, I don't like doing it. I like to appreciate the fact that sometimes people make mistakes, they're not perfect, and just take every day as it comes and give everybody a chance.
Yeah. I know what you mean about wanting to do your thing in your name.
Yeah.
I mean, I worked for Senator Donovan way back when, back in the early 70s. And, you'd write a speech or you'd write whatever, and you'd like to have people, I mean, he's giving the words, but it's your writing, and, so anyway. Hank Brown, did you know Hank Brown?
No, I did not. That was before my time here, but I know he touched a lot of people, right?
Yeah, and he was on your station, WUTQ. I forget what years, because he, if you're in radio, you move around a little bit, and he was on WIVX, and he was on WUTQ, WRUN, but boy, he was Mr. Personality in this area. He just passed.
Yep.
And I know a lot of people, including yours truly, thought a lot of him. He was a great guy. He raised a lot of money for. Do you guys get into that, benefits and helping to raise money for charities? I know you personally do with the United County History Center every year. But does the station, do your co-hosts get involved?
Well, we do the annual Stuff the Bus Christmas event. It's a toy drive, very successful. And Jay and I, we do our show from a trailer and JK Lumber.
Right.
We have all the guests come there. People fill up this camper with toys. We get thousands and thousands of toys that really really help a lot of children, needy children in this community. And so that's something that Rozier Communications and my company does, and we highlighted in our show, Talk of the Town, and Bug Country and KISS FM, and our sister station. So it's a big event for our area that helps a lot of families.
Yeah, and physically, Rozier Communications is located, is that Leland Ave that you're
Yeah,
on?
215 Leland Ave. It's when I tell people to go there to come on the show, it's the only spot between the two canals. You got the
Yeah.
Barge Canal and the Mohawk
Yeah,
River.
yeah.
And actually, this summer we're kicking off another annual What the Truck food truck rally event that a lot of people know it from that as well, and they don't realize that our radio station is right down the driveway
Right.
further. But
Yeah.
big event. A lot of people love that as well. So it's something that our company is very proud of.
Good.
I don't know how much time do we have left.
10 seconds.
10 seconds. Support your local news. Communities really need it. It's important to be engaged and important to appreciate our reporters in journalism.
Well said. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Joe.
That's going to do it for us this week. We'll do it again next week. Don't forget cnyhomepage.com. Lots of good stuff there. Until next time, take care of yourself, everybody.